Hi, my name's Callum Dicks and you're joining me at the lovely Barston Lakes. Today I've sat on a peg 100, which is an absolutely brilliant peg for silverfish. So I'm going to talk you through all the rigs, the hooks, the elastics and feeding of the two lines that I'm going to fish today, and just explain on how to be efficient and how to catch a big weight here at Barston. Even though Barston is a really big lake, the great thing about it is that these skimmers that you catch on the pole do tend to come in at a shorter distance, which allows you to be really fast and efficient. I've started my day on a short top kit, a short fall and 3 more sections. Now this is a really comfortable distance to fish. If you get your rollers set up correctly, you can be really fast. I'm actually breaking down on my short fall to swing the fish in, which is really important as well. At this distance, I feel like you're going to catch a really decent stamp of fish, but allowing you to be really quick. I've started that distance with just some crushed expanders and some maggots. That seems to be the way to get a lot of fish in your peg, a lot of smaller fish, and then maybe later on in the match you can move out and try and catch on luncheon meat. But what I'll do, I'll take you through in a little bit more detail the rigs, the hooks, and exactly what I mentioned before with the short fall and the short top kit in a minute. The biggest factor in being efficient and quick when catching lots of numbers of fish is the rig. I've learned in the past with bloodworm fishing, if your rig's not correct, you just won't be quick and efficient. I'll talk you through the rig that I'm using today, starting from the very bottom. To start off with, we're using a size 16 ES43. Now that's really important because the gape on the hook is very wide. So when you're hooking maggots, there's less chance from going over the point, and when you're swinging the fish, if you've got a wide gape, there's a lot less chance from bouncing off. The hook length, 014 MVR hook length mono. Main line, 018 MVR rig mono, which sounds quite heavy, but sometimes with a thicker line, it's just actually a little bit stiffer, so you get an odd less tangle. The float I'm using takes 7 number 9 shot. So I started the day with 5 number 9 shot bulked up and 2 number 9 droppers, 15 centimeters from the loop of the hook length. Now when I actually started fishing, I was catching an odd roach, an odd small fish on the drop. So I've just bulked it down now. So I've got 2 number 9s and my bulk with a couple of little styles just to trim the float right down. The float I'm using is an MVR Finesse 6, 0.4. So that's a weight of float that's going to allow me to settle quickly, but I'm not going to miss too many bites and I'm not going to bump too many fish. It's all about a balance with the float and the rig you're using. You're going to try and get it working as quick as possible, but you're not going to miss bites and bump fish. Now, one of the biggest things for me about being quick and efficient is the elastic you're using. I'm actually using a short kit with an 8 to 11 jaw core in, which might sound quite heavy. And even when I started fishing today, I thought it might just be on the heavy side, but it's been absolutely perfect. This setup, what I've got here now, is what I use when I'm F1 fishing in the summer. The shorter length of elastic actually stops the fish bumping off as much. I feel like with a lighter elastic, because there's less tension on the hook hold, the fish can flip over and the hook can pop off. So with a shorter length of elastic and a slightly heavier elastic, when you're actually playing the fish and when you're swinging them in, there's less chance of the fish flipping over and then popping off. Nice small little kinder pot to feed is really regular. But with that setup, it's really fast, it's really efficient, it's durable. You're not going to have to stop and make up new rigs. With the thicker main line, the floats and everything you're using, it just allows you to be really fast and efficient. Right, my bait choice for my shorter line that I'm going to be fishing today couldn't really be a lot simpler. We've got some dead maggots and we've got some crushed expander. The only thing I've done slightly different is that when I started fishing, I was fishing with maggots on the hook and I was cupping in my crushed expander how you would normally just mix it up, slightly damp so it sinks quite quickly. But what I found, I was plopping it in and there is a little bit of undertow today and I felt like the fish are in quite a bit of an area and I was hooking an odd small fish on the drop. So what I've done, I've mixed it really, really wet, almost to a texture that you would commonly know with paste. I've actually just got a bit of ground bait, really over wetted it so that it was unusable, left it to soak in again, and you can almost get it and run it off your fingers. I've also added just an odd dead maggot into it, stirred it round, and you're left with that. Now, if you actually to drop that in, it is so heavy, it will sink to the bottom immediately. In a little bit of undertow, and if there's an odd small fish about, that's a really good tip. Getting your grain bait and mixing it really wet. So that's the bait choice. Couldn't be a lot simpler. All you have to do is once you're fishing, just start mixing your grain bait up and messing about with the texture, and away you go. Try and get your peg as settled as possible so that you're going in, you're not missing many bites, you're not foul looking any fish, and you're hooking a fish every single chuck. Now we've been fishing a little while and my peg is really starting to become settled. I'm catching a real decent skimmer or some little carp or decent roach, most chucks now. So I'm just going to talk you through the process of going out, getting a fish, bringing it back in and making sure there's a fish in your keep net every time. So the first thing that I do is I bait up. I've just started fishing with 3 red maggots on the hook instead of 2, which has been really good, a better stamp of fish, and I'm not catching as many roach. Next bit, lay my rig down into the edge of the lake, making sure that you're nowhere near your keep nets. It's always a good idea to make sure you put your keep nets to the right hand side of your peg. Ship out to where I'm fishing, to the end of my section. Now what I've got here today, I've got a slight bit of undertow from left to right. So when I drop my rig in, I'm going to put it about 6 inches to the left of where I'm dropping my bait in. Now that gives the time for the rig to settle, for you to tap your bait in out of the pot, and by the time the bait is out of the pot, the rig is perfect right on top of where you're actually fishing. You don't want to be dropping your rig in exactly where you're feeding, because by the time the bait comes out of the pot, the rig is to the right of the bait. Now once that floats in the correct position, what I'll do then is just hold my float dead still over the top of where I've been putting my bait in. In general, if I drop my rig in, it settles and I've got to wait maybe 10 to 15 seconds for a fish, that tends to be the slightly better fish. If I drop my rig in and it goes straight away, that tends to be the smaller fish. Once I've hooked one, ship in, and then it's up to you to gauge whether the fish is too big or is the right size to swing. With the setup that I talked about, the elastic and the rig, it does allow you to swing in a big stamp of fish. I reckon the skimmers that I've been swinging in today are probably 8 to 10 ounces. Anything bigger than that, it's a bit risky trying to swing them. But I'm just going to repeat the process again. So I've got my fish in, I've put it in my net, straight out, get to the end of your section, drop my rig in probably 6 inches to the left of where I've been putting my bait, let that settle and then pop your bait in. By the time the bait is out of the pot, the rig's right on top of the bait, and then it's just up to you to hold it nice and still and decide when to strike into a fish. I'm getting a bite every single chuck, so it's just up to you to decide to be nice and patient, to pick what indication's right to catch the biggest of fish. Fishing at that shorter distance with ground bait and that overwetted ground bait and maggots has been unbelievable. We've caught a skimmer, some big roach, we've caught some little carp. It's been great. We've had a bite virtually every chuck. But the whole time that I've been fishing short, I have been pinging a bit of luncheon meat about 2 sections past at 13 metres. Now I'm not sure whether those big bream are going to be in the area or in my peg, but fishing this way slightly further out into the lake with luncheon meat does really give you the best chance of catching them. The rig itself that I'm using is virtually identical. We still want to be nice and positive, and if we do go out there and catch some fish that you can swing, you do want to still swing them in and be as fast as possible. Elastics and everything's exactly the same. So I've just shipped out now for the first chuck. I have been using my catapult pinging meat, but I am going to just start off by potting a little bit of bait in and keep it nice and concentrated. Get a few bites, catch a few fish, see how big they are, and then maybe at a later date start picking a catapult up and spreading the bait out a little bit if it does get really good. Well, there you go, a bite straight away. Doesn't seem a bigger fish to start with, but it could need a little bit of fishing before they turn up. But a very similar process to where we were fishing short. With the kinder pot, I'm putting a piece of 7mm meat on the hook, lay it in the edge, 10 to 15 pieces of meat in the pot, ship out, catch a fish and repeat the process. So we've had an unbelievable start to our session. We started short with just some ground bait and dead maggots, and to be honest, we've caught a fish every single chuck. We've caught some real decent skimmers, some decent roach, some little carp. Now we've gone long where I've been pinging that meat the whole time that I was fishing short, and the fish are bigger. There's no question about it, they are bigger, but it is slower. So the thing that you would have to decide now is if this was a match situation is which line you're going to fish the more time on to catch the biggest weight. So I personally think fishing long and fishing short, you're catching twice as quick fishing short, but they are smaller. So you've got to try and weigh it up. And for me personally, if this was a match situation now, I would be spending more time fishing short. But by fishing in this way, with your two lines, with your two different baits, it really does keep your options covered. You might come here another day and catch a load of big bream short, or you might catch them long. It just depends on the day and the conditions. But the beauty of it is if you keep your options open, you really do give yourself the best chance of catching a big weight. Oh, and that is one great other thing about fishing with meat, that you do give yourself a chance of an odd one like this. There is plenty of these in Barston, and you do give yourself a chance of hooking an odd fish like this on meat. But after fishing today, I've learned a lot, and I can see why the lads have been catching in excess of £100. The fish have probably averaged 8 to 10 ounces short. A couple hundred fish, 150 fish with an odd fish like this chucked in, and you're in a match winning weight. Well, before I put it back, here's a quick shot for you. What a way to end a great day.